The title of my presentation is Confronting Plastic Pollution in Beaufort County. And this is for the Earth Cares seminar series that is being broadcast by Zoom at First Presbyterian Church of Hilton Head Island on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. The outline of my presentation begins with the description of plastic production and how it's made from fossil fuels. It will then go into the plastic pollution problem that we've encountered for some time dating back to the 1950s. In part 3, I will discuss current strategies on engaging global plastic pollution challenges. In part 4, it is about confronting a problem in Beaufort County, South Carolina, where inspiration was drawn off of part 3. And then I will go into concluding remarks. From part 1 of plastic production, this is a figure showing how plastic is created from fossil fuels. Now, the kinds of plastic that are being made from fossil fuels are kinds like polypropylene. And this isn't the same process used to make the green plastic that's out there nowadays, but most of the plastic that is out there originates from crude oil. And you can see crude oil here, which is a mixture of hundreds of different hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons in chemistry are molecules that have hydrogen and carbon elements, and they make up this material. Now, when crude oil is placed into a furnace at very high temperatures, it can be separated and fractionated out, where it goes into a still, and by separating based off of temperature, you can get various different fuels or new raw materials to come out of crude oil. The one that we're going to be interested in is called naphtha, where the temperature range of isolation of this fraction is from anything from 60 to 180 degrees Celsius. And naphtha leads to the production of plastics. Naphtha is a mixture of carbon 10s and carbon 5s of hydrocarbons. And after naphtha is created from this distillation process of crude oil, there is a steam cracking step that gets performed, followed by a polymerization step. And at that moment, you can make polypropylene plastic, as an example. There is a plastic pollution problem, and in this diagram, you'll see an estimated global flow of plastic during the year 2016. It starts out here with the production of plastics from fossil fuels, where in 2016, 330 million metric tons were produced. And millions of metric tons are represented by the abbreviation capital M lowercase t. And a ton in this context is known as 2,204.6 pounds, as opposed to being a ton spelled as TON, where we're used to seeing that as 2,000 pounds. There's a little different there in the amount. But the plastic pollution problem would be that we're producing so much plastic that we would like to recycle it, where you can see this blue arrow going back to plastic. However, much of it is going to waste, and that waste is either going to be burned through incinerators. Some of it gets thrown into landfills, dumps, and oceans. Right? Downcycling in the recycle process is a step where plastics will be broken down into a type of plastic that is not the same quality. It's just a lower form of the plastic that it originally was, but it cannot be, like, let's suppose you had a bottle. It cannot be a bottle anymore. It would have to be something of a lower quality. But if you have something that gets circularly recycled, then you don't have to make any kinds of changes to that. Here's a production of plastic projection where we are in the year of 2021 right now, and you can see on the y-axis how it's forecasted to grow to 600 million tons per year of plastic production. And going back how you looked at in 2016, where we had about 330. Most of the plastic in the world was produced after World War II, which would have been 1945. You can see this uptick in the year 1950, and the uptick continues. Most of the plastic ever produced, as 56%, has been between now and the year 2000, which is very alarming. Having too much plastic in the world, it covers too much volume and it will linger around and can't be decomposed. Here are some figures showing the total plastic waste generation and per capita plastic waste generation. For example, these are the countries that are producing the most plastic in the world, the United States being the number one country at 42%. And the types of plastics that are mainly being made would be packaging being the highest one. Packaging has its own problems because everyone wants to have a product and they get packaged in plastic, and that's where this industry has headed for many years. Useful materials of plastic would be for building and construction, automotive. You have electrical and electronic, household, leisure, and sports, agriculture, and others. And these uses have very defined uses, and it's not so much a problem for why those are made, but it seems that the plastics that are contributing mainly to the problem are from packaging, or if you have some single-use items like bottles that aren't getting recycled and they're just being thrown into the waste. This is a figure showing the countries of the world where total emitted plastic into the ocean has taken place, and it's looking at darker shades of blue where that would indicate you would have more millions of metric tons per year being polluting of plastic into the oceans. And you could see that in the United States, the shade of blue is not as dark as when you make a comparison to some of the other countries of the world, particularly countries in the Asian side of the world. You have India, China, Malaysia, and the Philippines being some top contributors. On the eastern side of the world, Brazil is a large contributor as well. And in Africa, we have Nigeria being part of that group. If we focus in on the Philippines, which is one of the highest ocean polluters of plastic, I first want to talk about where does all this plastic actually come from? Most waste has not been carried out to sea by the largest rivers, example given the Amazon River, but by the small rivers of the world that flow through heavily populated areas. Now, there are approximately 1,000 of these small rivers in the world, which contributes to approximately 80% of the plastic pollution that goes into the ocean. Now, circling back to the Philippines, there is this river known as the Pasig River that flows through Manila, the capital city of the Philippines, and was found to bring the most plastic to sea. This is a creek that goes through one of the slums in Manila and is part of the Pasig River. And as you can see, there are a lot of plastic that have filled this creek up, and you cannot even see the water. It is so heavily polluted, and it's just an example of the kinds of plastic pollution we see in some of these countries. Now, the problems presented by plastic pollution on land and sea. One problem would be the fate of plastic on exposure to the sun. If plastic is in the ocean and it gets shined on by the sun, it will break down and it will turn into microplastics. And microplastics are a big problem because sea organisms will swallow them, or they will be absorbed into the organisms that are in the sea, and that will develop major problems on their health. Marine plastic pollution has visible consequential effects to marine wildlife, such as the entanglement in the plastic. Large wildlife would include turtles, bottlenose dolphins, birds, sharks, whales, sea lions, just to name a couple, or to name a few. And millions of marine life die annually, of at least 260 species, due to marine plastic pollution. The problem with the disposal of plastic in the landfills would be that landfills are filling up much faster than they would if you would just throw trash into trash receptacles and so forth. By throwing plastics into the trash stream, you are increasing the rate at which a landfill would be occupied by such matter. Plastic poses risk to the environment because of rain and chemicals leaching off and moving into the groundwater. When plastic is put into the land of a landfill, every time it rains, the rain will leach those chemicals off of the plastic, and those chemicals will make their way into the groundwater. So it's very important that we aren't contributing plastic into landfills for that reason. What solutions are being pursued? Global level for plastic cleanup in oceans and rivers. I like to focus here on the work of Boyan Slat. He is the CEO and founder of the Ocean Cleanup Project, and you can find information on it from theoceancleanup.com. He focuses on the polluted rivers because the polluted rivers of the world, those 1,000 rivers I just mentioned, are the source of the plastic that goes into the oceans, about 80%. And he has a boat called the Interceptor that will collect plastics in rivers. But he's also working on cleaning up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch with a two-system boat called System 002 or 002. Now, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch was discovered by Captain Charles Moore in 1997. And this is a patch between California and Hawaii. And it covers a vast area in the Pacific Ocean where if you were to go out there in boat, you would find that there was plastic at the surface level of the water. And a lot of it's microplastics. Marine wildlife are encountering entanglement problems and they are dying from it. It's a very big problem. It's the size, more than twice the size of Texas. Now, based off of ocean currents and wind, all of the pollution of plastic into the oceans, the plastic migrates and moves into this area, into this patch, and that's why it's there. So from those Asian countries that I mentioned, the plastic will eventually move into these patch zones. This is going to be one of the larger patches in the world. There are other patches, by the way. And this is System 2 shown here. This is Boyan Slats. He has a two-boat system. And you can see down in this third figure how there's a barrier that is U-shaped. As the two boats move forward, and they are positioned here and here, the barrier, which is a net, will collect plastics that are in the ocean, and there are areas where fish could exit the barrier so that only the plastics are collected, and it moves at 2 miles per hour. It's a very slow thing. Once the net is fully saturated with plastic debris, there is a boat that will collect all of the recyclables, and then they repeat the process. And System 2 is going through this Great Pacific Garbage Patch. At the rivers, they are deploying a single boat known as the Interceptor, which is this boat right here. It has a barrier arm shown here where it extends it goes out for maybe the length of a football field, and it'll claw up, but you don't see it clawing up or curving up on the end of it. And the flow of the trash is going to go towards the boat as the boat is going forward. As the boat is collecting the plastic waste, it'll go into a conveyor belt right at the tip of the boat or the vessel, and all the plastic waste will go right into the boat, and it's a way to intercept the plastic and take it out of the rivers. Now, from his work, I was inspired to make a difference at the local level here at Beaufort County. I'm a professor at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. And one day, one of the custodians showed me a trash can at the end of the day. It was at 5 p.m. in one of the classrooms, and he said, this is a very big problem, and you can see the trash can right here, how you have plastic recyclables. And I've been working there since 2013, and he's showing me this in the year 2019. The university it wasn't recycling plastic, metals, or we have aluminum as well. Now that's a metal, but a lot of this material is just going right into the trash, and that presented a large problem. As a director of the environmental club, I wanted to find a solution to this and develop a recycling initiative. Our university has a total of 2,400 students, faculty, and staff during the year of 2019. And from all of those students, faculty, and staff, that is going to be found on the Beaufort campus, the Hilton Head Island campus, and the Bluffton campus. So that amounts to a lot of people in Beaufort County that are where they don't have any other option but to throw plastic recyclables only into the trash cans when they're on the sites of the USCB campuses. This is a single stream recycling dumpster that I saw at a library in Pennsylvania. It's the Tredyffrin Public Library, which inspired me to proceed with this. Now, this recycling dumpster is just showing you that there are books being thrown away by the library, that they were old books, and that represents paper. And single stream recycling, and what it is that you can have mixed recyclables go into this dumpster. So you can think about it as curbside recycling. And you can have anything from paper, cardboard, plastic, and metal. And I thought very deeply about implementing a system like this, because at our university we only recycled paper and cardboard only, but not the others. And that was the main problem, is that we needed to have a system where we could have just one easy way of doing it. And this was a great option on the table. I started a fundraiser through a crowdfunding website known as experiment.com. The title of the fundraiser was called "How Much of Recyclable Materials Are We Throwing into the Trash at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort?" And the amount that we wanted to raise was $4,537 to run the recycling initiative. Now, the idea was we would use that money to pay a recycling company for the first 6 months to take out the single stream recyclables. And I made an agreement with the Department of Maintenance at my university that if this would be a successful plan, that the university would then pick up the check and be able to finance the recycling program. And that's how we went about doing this fundraiser, was that we convinced the public that we have this idea. And we wanted to also look at it in terms of how much weight of the recyclables were actually going into the trash, which was another part of this project. And I won't talk about that in this talk. The major backers of the fundraiser were Palmetto Pride and the University of South Carolina main campus. And on December 18th of 2019, the Environmental Club at USCB was awarded a 2020 Litter Prevention Grant from Palmetto Pride. Once we received their grant, which was installed into the fundraiser, the next day, the fundraiser was matched at 50% by the University of South Carolina Office of the Vice President for Research, and the entire fundraiser was successful. In this figure, I have remaining recycling bins our team needed to distribute to ensure that all of the faculty and staff members on all USCB campuses would receive their bins. All of the offices at USCB would require these blue recycling bins so that if, let's suppose a professor was drinking a bottle of juice and the plastic bottle could be easily thrown into one of these bins in their office, and then when a bin would fill up, they would walk that bin outside and dump all of their plastic materials, or it could be single stream recycling, it could be paper, it could be metal. But we had to think about an organized way where in every office, faculty or staff members could eliminate their waste, and we wouldn't have to put this burden on the custodial staff. Otherwise, the custodial staff would have to take out the trash and the new recycling per office. So we created a way where the custodians wouldn't be burdened by this, and would be placed on the faculty and staff responsibility. Now, in doing so, I emailed all faculty and staff members who didn't have a recycling bin, and once I found out the names of the people who were missing their bins, we ordered all of these and we made sure that everyone had a blue bin. Also, from the money that we raised from the crowdfunder, we purchased blue recycling receptacles that were stationed in front of the main buildings at USCB. The receptacles can collect the single stream recyclables. On the Bluffton campus, we have 5 receptacles. On the Hilton Head Island campus, we have 1 receptacle. And on the Beaufort campus, we have 2 receptacles. Here are some pictures of them. They are weatherproof, so they can go out in the rain. That's what they're meant for. These open tops are meant for areas that have ceilings and the rain won't go inside of them, but the ones that have the dome lids are meant to go out in hotspot areas where you get a high foot count of students, but the dome is protecting the inside from getting wet. Recyclables can't get wet. That's one of the key requirements for having a good batch of recyclable trash, is that you want the materials to be dry so that they can be processed well in the facility. So in this recycling initiative, these kinds of details needed to be thought about. And then finally, from bins to receptacles, we now are going to the dumpster, where we have 1 dumpster per campus because we have 3 campuses. We have the Bluffton, Hilton, Head Island, and Beaufort campuses. And this is the dumpster provided by Pro Disposal, which is the company that will service and take all of the recyclables back to their facility. And again, I financed a 6-month work order with this company. And because everything was successful, the Department of Maintenance, and you can see their building right behind the dumpster, they agreed, and they are now paying Pro Disposal to do single stream recycling at USCB. The next stage was to create an educational campaign so that faculty, students, and staff members would be able to properly throw out the recyclables into these recycling bins. And I had to make videos in order for everyone to see this. And I used social media and emails to get the word around. There's a correct way to recycle plastics. There is a correct way to recycle cardboards and paper. And there's a correct way to recycle metals. And Pro Disposal has rules into what they can accept and what they can't accept. And by doing this correctly, we can create a system where folks are educated and they can learn how to recycle so that this process works out. We do get contamination in certain hotspot areas in our recycling receptacles. For example, in this bin, you can see a styrofoam cup, which is a material that cannot be recycled this way. Styrofoam often is thought that it could be recycled, but it's a commodity that can only be thrown into the trash. There are Starbucks cups that you see here that are for the hot beverages. And that's a complicated type of cup because the cup is made of paper, but the inner lining is made of plastic, and that is a mixed paper and plastic combination, and that can't be recycled. So that's one of these items that can only be thrown into the trash. And that was part of the educational campaign, was to teach people what was allowed to go into these bins and what was not. But again, we have hotspot areas on campus, and we have to keep re-educating newer generations of students, because every year you're going to have new freshmen that come in who might not know how to do it. So it's an ongoing process, and when custodians find contaminated batches of recyclables, we have to figure out ways of confronting this problem. Our efforts were highlighted in the Bluffton Sun newspaper. It was on December 16th of 2019, and the title of the newspaper article was USCB Bluffton to Introduce Single Stream Recycling. If you want to learn more about this newspaper article, you can find it online. In conclusion, as an environmental advocate, I encourage you all to build or support a new recycling initiative in our county. At the local level, this will improve the quality of our landfills and waterways. Get started today on a plan. In conclusion, identify existing plastic pollution problems in Beaufort County. Set up a fundraiser. You can try a crowdfunder. Implement the recycling program idea. And finally, supplement the program with an educational factor. At the University of South Carolina, Beaufort, there are various people that I would like to acknowledge for this recycling initiative. Members of the environmental club at USCB who made contributions to support the recycling project include Ms. Claudia Dahl, who is now a USCB alumna, and she graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology in 2019. I need to thank Mrs. Catherine Madden, who is an instructor of biological sciences, for a lot of mentorship support, and Mr. Norman Barnes, another member of the environmental club, who has worked hand in hand with me with the recycling concept, and he was the person who originally showed me the trash can, illustrating the problem of how plastics are going into the trash stream, where we need to look at this problem more carefully. And he's pictured next to me in the photo. That is Norman. Non-members who have contributed support either financially or through mentorship would include Dr. Stephen Borginini, Dr. Eric Monti, and Dr. Jane T. Upshaw. Thank you.